welcome back to IGN Live from Gamescom 2018. It's time to check in with FIFA 19, and Matt is here to fill us in on all the details.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the IGN stage.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So in FIFA 19, you've got the Journey champions.
Yep.
Right, and this is going to be the conclusion to the Alex Hunter trilogy.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. So this is, as you mentioned, the end of the trilogy. When we envisaged the Journey a few years ago, we always envisaged it as a trilogy because that's kind of a movie theme.
Sure.
And one of the things we wanted to do with the Journey was kind of showcase the various levels of football. So year one was all about his breakout into the professional game. Year two was about him spreading his wings, going further afield to LA and Europe. And year three is about his journey for the ultimate in club football, namely the Champions League. But one of the interesting things about it, and as you can see here, what we can see here, is there are actually three separate stories.
Right.
And you can play as three different characters. So in the previous one, you had a little taster of that with Danny and Kim. Now they have fully fleshed out stories, and you can play throughout those. And you can see at the bottom of the screen there's a timeline. So the interesting thing is we allow users to play exactly the way they want to play. So there is a kind of golden path that we encourage users to play, but if someone just wants to play through the entire Alex story, they can do, or they can hop in and out of them at free will. Okay. So you can see the timeline, and then the stories will intersect. So what you're about to see here is a taste of Alex's story, and what you will see here is him and Danny having a look at the Champions League draw and seeing that they aren't drawn in the same group, because ultimately leads to a Champions League final if you do well with them going head to head. And one of the interesting things here is that because, as I mentioned, you can play through the stories at free will, there are certain times when the stories will cross over and intersect, and we have what we call perspective scenes. So this is a scene that was seen through Alex's eyes. If you play Danny's story, you will see this scene through his eyes. So it's a nice, interesting where they kind of cross paths, so you kind of see the different perspectives.
I see.
Yeah.
So each of the characters has their own story?
Yep, absolutely. So it's own fully fleshed out story that you can play at your own pace or hop in and out.
I see. And you can have more than you can have them all three open at once.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. And you can freely hop in at any point and in and out at any point.
That's interesting. That's a pretty big diversion from the previous journeys.
It is. And that's one of the things we want to do with each iteration of the Journey is provide new and interesting ways to play. Not just the kind of formulaic A to B kind of journey. So we've introduced new ways to play throughout, and this is kind of the culmination of that with three consecutive stories that you can kind of, as I say, hop in and out of at your own free will.
Interesting. So what's being set up here?
So this is where Alex and Danny kind of learn that they're not in the Champions League groups. Danny will actually face his brother in the Champions League group, so that sets up a nice kind of dynamic between them. But if we skip forward from this, what we'll see is Alex actually going to the Real Madrid dressing room for the first time, and he's quite, if you remember from the Journey 2, it was his childhood dream to play for Real Madrid, and now he's actually realizing that, and you can see he's a little bit awestruck when he kind of walks in here. And one of the interesting things this time is that we take Alex to Real Madrid, is that we can be more specific with the players around him, because previously we had the choice of which team you could go to, so it kind of limited how much we could do with the real players. Because he now goes to Real Madrid, we can do a lot more with that. So one of the new features we have is a mentor feature. So when you go to Real Madrid and you're training for the first time, you're approached by the trainers, and basically they offer you to train with one set of the players or the other, so you can kind of pick who you want to play with. So the likes of Bale, Benzema, or versus Modric, Marcello, that kind of thing. And the way you interact with those, it will influence the way you grow your players. So you will have mentor challenges. So you might have a passing challenge against Modric that will grow Alex's passing abilities. Or if you choose the other side, you may have a shooting drill against Benzema. And then one of the other interesting things is when you actually go into game, you can play just as your mentor group. So we've now got 4 ways to play. So you can play locked to Alex Hunter, you can play as the whole team, you can play as mentors, or you can play multiplayer. And one of the other interesting things, as you're about to see here, is we've kind of embedded mini games within the kind of environment. So what you see here is a pre-game ritual that Real Madrid actually do. And this is Alex Hunter before the game, playing with his mentor group. He starts off in the middle. If you manage to get possession, he goes on the outside. So you can see we've kind of embedded that experience and, like I say, because we're locked to Real Madrid, we can do a lot more with these real players. So you interact a lot more with the real players, you get to speak to them a lot more, and you, as I say, you kind of train with them a lot more. And then throughout the journey, we've got little kind of snippets like this where there's kind of interactive skill training within certain environments. I don't want to spoil it by telling you what those are, but it's just a new an immersive way to kind of bring gameplay to the story that we haven't done before.
Well, you were saying you actually envisioned the journey or Alexander's story as a trilogy back in FIFA 17. And I think the journey has been pretty well received. So it must be nice that it was, so that you could actually see the story through.
Yes, absolutely. Because when you come out with a new mode, you're never quite sure of the feedback. It's something I've always wanted to do because I think it brings a different spin on what you could previously get in FIFA. It kind of takes the action off the pitch. We've always focused on the pitch for obvious reasons. But the journey really kind of allowed us to kind of look behind the curtain into the real life players and what these players go through. And as you can see here, Alex is making his debut for Real Madrid, so a big moment for him. Yeah, so this is going to jump into an actual game here? Yep, it is. So you'll see a little bit of gameplay here. We're playing locked to Alex at this point. And you'll see the mentors will be identified differently. They've got a little red dot over their head so you can see who those mentors are. And one of the things is in gameplay, if you play well with those mentors, you'll actually build up the relationship with those and grow Alex through that as well. Have there been improvements made under the hood to the animation? Yeah, so I mean, it's another big year for gameplay, so we've done a lot in gameplay to improve the overall experience. Gameplay is and always will be the core pillar for FIFA. So there's a whole new bunch of gameplay features that support not just the journey, but obviously throughout the game. So we've got active touch system, with a whole new animation system that fundamentally changes the way you trap and kick the ball, which obviously is a big part of football, so a big one there. Dynamic tactics, which adds a whole new level of tactics and tuning to the game, so you can really kind of create your own play style, and also the teams you play against will play in their realistic play style, so Real Madrid will play as Real Madrid. We have 50-50 battles, which is a new system of where two players interact for the ball. It's a lot more physical, a lot more realistic. We've also got timed finishing, which is a new way of shooting, kind of a risk-reward mechanic that gives a little bit more power to the user should they want to use it. It's not you don't have to use it. It's just an optional thing that you can use if you choose to want to do it. So yeah, it's a huge year across the board for gameplay and everywhere else in the game. Yeah, I know there's some big new features added to kickoff mode as well. Yeah, so I mean, if we can kind of skip out of this, we can take a quick look at kickoff. So yeah, kickoff is a great mode. We see a lot of people play that. A lot of people come to it. Previously, it was a little bit. Throwaway is the wrong word, but you played a game and that kind of disappeared into the ether. And one of the things we do at work, and I'm sure there's lots of users out there that do it as well, is you kind of keep track of your games against each other. So, on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper. So this basically takes the need for that and puts it in the game. So we've all got friends who say, "Oh, I always beat you at FIFA," and you're like, "No, do you really?" So this is the proof. So this kind of takes away that ambiguity. And basically, so there's a number of things. So it's stat track. So you can quickly enter a kickoff name, and you can enter yours, and then it will perpetually track the stats between us. It obviously wins, losses, all that, but also the way you play. So it will show you where you score goals from, where you're most successful in attacking. So there's this whole robust stat tracking system, and as I say, it continually tracks the stats, so there's no argument who is the better player. And the cool thing about that, if you then link that to your PlayStation ID, that data then lives in the cloud. So we could play a game around my house, go around to your house, and that data is always linked. So there's no getting away with it. It's not just on my console. And then one of the other things we're still looking at here is new ways to play. As you can see here, we've got Classic Match, which is obviously the one that everyone's familiar with. But then there's a lot of other different ways to play. So home and away is kind of the traditional two-leg thing. We've got best of series, so first to 3, first to 5 games. Cup final. So one of the things we do a lot of effort in our game to really bring to life the emotion and presentation of a cup final. Previously, a lot of people never really saw that because they never went through career mode and won that cup final. What we've now added here is the ability to play any kickoff game as any of the cup finals in our game. Wow. So you can skip straight to the FA Cup and get all the pomp and pageantry of that, all that atmosphere. So you can do that. Champions League final is another one that you can play a kickoff game as. And then the other one that we're seeing here now, house rules. And this is cool. Yeah, this one's gone down particularly well. So this is a different spin on the way you play the game. So we've got a number of things in there. So long range goals. So goals outside of the box count as 2. Headers and volleys, only goals scored through headers and volleys count. No rules. A lot of people like that one. So basically you can just foul anything. Offsides don't count. But one of the ones that's been really going down well is one that we've called Survivor mode.
Right.
So basically this is when you score a goal, a player from your team is randomly ejected. So it kind of creates this seesaw mentality where I might go up 2 goals, but suddenly I'm down to 9 men, so the advantage is with my opposition. So that one's been going down a real storm. And the idea is that it just injects a little bit of fun into FIFA, and something that you've never been able to do previously.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are sort of adding a little bit more arcadey elements to it.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, authenticity is our key pillar, but at the end of the day, we are a game, and people come to our game to have fun. So this is an element that if they want that kind of different experience, they can come to. And one of the interesting things about it is a lot of people who played FIFA for many, many years have come to us saying this is super cool. It just injects kind of new life into it. So.
Touch on timed finishing.
Yep.
How that works.
So time finishing, as I mentioned, is kind of an optional mechanic. So basically it comes from community feedback. We're obviously engaged with our community the year round. And this is more from a pro player standpoint, where they wanted the ability to have a little more control over shooting. So what this is if, and it's completely optional. You don't have to use it. So basically, you can shoot as you would, and always have done it in FIFA with the shoot button. But now, if you press it a second time, and if you time it correctly, you will get a little bit more power, a little bit more swerve. So it'll be a little bit more of an effective shot. And the kind of visual feedback, the visual cue in order to achieve that successfully is basically when the player is kicking the ball, when his foot actually touches the ball. So that's the visual cue you're looking for. So what that means is it's not a timing specific in the sense that it's not double tap all the time.
Sure.
Depending on the shot, the header, it could be you wait longer or you do it quicker. So it's quite hard to master because it's situational based. And then obviously being at risk reward, the downside is if you mistime it, you're going to shank it into row Z. So I personally don't use it that much. When I'm shooting from distance, I'll give it a go. When I think this is a bit of a hit and hope kind of situation, I'll maybe use it there. But if you're like 5 yards out with an empty net, I would suggest not using it.
So timing that second button press, is it kind of like a golf game where you're sort of
no, it's just a double tap.
Okay.
If you turn the trainer on, it will show you a little bit of how to time it, so you can kind of learn the timing. But the visual cue, as I mentioned, is kind of the animation. So it varies. So it's not something you can master just by closing your eyes and knowing precisely when to double tap. It depends entirely on the situation.
I see.
So.
Very cool. Well, FIFA 19 is out September 25th.
Yes.
PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you so much for coming by the Agent Stage. Have a great show.
Pleasure.
We're a little far. Oh, we do the reach across the aisle, everybody. Stay tuned. Still more to come from Gamescom 2018 right here on IGN Live after this.